If you haven't already helped yourself to some coffee and light refreshments, please do so. Vonz was gracious enough to host the space for us today, and there's Richard and Vaughn. We give them our appreciation, but they've put out some coffee. Please, as I'm talking, it's a little bit informal. You're welcome to get up and help yourself to anything you like over there. My name is Ben. I'm with the Green Dot Schuylkill program here in Tamaqua. And just some housekeeping. I know there's a lot of paper at your table. There's two packets specifically I want to draw your attention to underneath all of the business cards. The first just has the green dot on it. It looks like an agenda, and that's pretty much what it is. It's an outline of what we'll be doing here today. Everything that is there for you to keep. The agenda, we'll call that the education packet. If I have to refer back to it, that's what I mean. And then going along with that is one that starts with that page, and we'll call that the resource packet. And I'll be explaining that a little bit later. In addition to those pieces of information, Maureen Donovan is here from LTRC and the Center for Leadership and Workforce Development, and we've placed out flyers there specific to their training programs that they offer called Safe Serve. Serve Safe. I don't do that. I'm dyslexic. I do that every single time. Thanks. Serve Safe, and there's a sign-up sheet here for that afterwards, and TIPS certification. Some information about that, and also sign up. Maureen will follow up with you on those if you're interested, for you or your staff, your establishment. In Tamaqua, we go out to eat a lot, we go out to drink a lot, we go to church a lot, and we go to games. Therefore, the need is great that we meet with those places and organizations where most Tamaquans and residents of the area tend to frequent on a regular basis. That's why you've been invited here. Because it's going to be in the front lines of the everyman who's out and about in our town and in our area. If you're not familiar with Green Dot, we get our name from the idea Mission Impossible. That's perfect. That was just right. I planned that.
You planted that. I know you did.
It's not an impossible mission, so I'm glad we had that music. It's actually very tasteful.
Can I say something, Ben, that would help you quite a bit? Because I had quite a bit of experience in redevelopment.
Sure.
I was in Miami for 35 years, and who knows about fabulous South Beach?
Yeah.
Raise your hand. Who's seen it on TV? Okay. Guess what fabulous South Beach was when I first moved there? Pawn shops, adult bookstores. There were television cameras on the streets to protect the police department and the city hall. Okay? And they blamed every single thing on the Cubans. And really what it was all of a sudden Miami, when the Cubans were left from internment, had to absorb 350,000 people at one time. And their population at that time was only 250,000 people. So what has happened here, and it's happened in Hazleton where I grew up, and which once, when I was growing up, I'm going to be 55 next month, won the All-American Cities Award, happens everywhere where you move in renters and no jobs. You know, that's what has happened here. And when you don't outreach and invite people, because Lou Barletta had the opportunity with all the national media in Hazleton when he was anti-immigrant to showcase something nice, at least one nice thing, of the whole chamber booklet that had all nice things about Hazleton, and said not one nice thing. And let me tell you something, a 30-second spot on national TV costs approximately $80 million, and he had 15-minute segments in town hall meetings and said not one nice reason for anyone to come to his town. So even Can Do, their flagship that saved them after the coal mines closed and what put Hazleton on the map, moved out of town after that. So that's all I have to say. So please keep that in mind. You know, that You know, most businesses have a tendency to think that you're gonna open something wonderful and they're gonna come. And that never happens. What saved us in Miami was, believe it or not, Miami Vice. And who out of the cast of Miami Vice became world famous, won Emmys and Oscars and everything, the least character, Edward James Olmos. Okay? And he was the nothing. You know, the big stars, the two stars, you never even hear about them anymore. So also keep that in mind. That's PR that drives business and people. You know, that's what we need.
Thank you. Thanks very much. That's a nice framework for what we're talking about in terms of hanging on to what's good in Tamaqua and enhancing what's already good and what's happening. It's a town that's definitely on the rise, which drew my family here just from 8 miles away. And certainly I'm glad to be part of it at this level, this outreach. Green Dot gets its name from, if you can imagine, a movie, a science fiction movie or a thriller movie where you see a map of the United States up on the wall and everybody's standing around the conference table and a disease like a horrible zombie apocalypse is spreading and there's red dots and that's all the instances of the disease until the whole map is just filled up. And they say, here it is at 24 hours and here it is at 48 hours. In our model, the red dot is instances of power-based personal violence. And those are any moments in time in which somebody exhibits the power to harm another person through physicality, through physical assault, through sexual assault, child abuse, elder abuse, mistreatment of somebody with disabilities. And the way to counteract those red dots is naturally through green dots. It's just a natural association. Red light, stop, green light is go. Green dots are any moments in time in which somebody does something to counteract those red dots. They become informed, they become a resource for a victim, they become an advocate. They are simply moments in time in which individuals exercise personal power to act on behalf of someone else before they're victimized and prevent a crime from ever happening at all. To that end, the Green Dot model was established at the University of Kentucky out of the Department of Sociology and Psychology, in which they had been victims advocates for years and found that they were sort of pushing a boulder uphill, and then figured out through their research that in a lot of instances of these power-based personal crimes, there were bystanders who were aware of circumstances leading up to a crime and chose not to or didn't act in a way which prevented it. And so the emphasis became, let's step forward of the crime and go to bystanders and empower people to recognize signs and symptoms of crime before they happen in families, in communities, in clubs, organizations, and do something before it's ever a responsive type of crime. There's different green dots. There's proactive and reactive. Reactive green dots occur when you see something imminently about to happen, a raised fist or somebody getting loud or getting up from the table and shoving their chair in. That obviously is calling for intervention. We'll talk in a few minutes about some tools with what you can do when those things happen. Proactive green dots are establishing a new cultural norm in a town or community that says we are, almost like holding up an invisible sign that says we are intolerant to violence of any kind, and this is how you'll know it. And it's attending trainings like this. It's supporting events that go on in town, like the Children's Carnival or National Night Out or Heritage Day. When people come out in force and celebrate a community and become involved, those are proactive green dots, even though they don't necessarily have that name attached to it. So a lot of that has been happening in Tamaqua over the past 20 years. I think the next 20 years you're going to see a whole lot more of it. It's certainly a slow process to reverse the tide of economic downturn and the problems that come with it. And so it's nice to be part of that on the upswing. We can't go into this without the unfortunate recognition that for some people it's already too late. They've experienced crime and assault of some kind. And to that end, the program that I'm with also has a paid trauma-informed counselor, Laura Noon, who's sitting over here on my left. She's able to provide to the Tamaqua residents free of charge trauma-informed counseling. And her brochure is, this brochure, all about the trauma-informed counseling, and then one of the SARC business cards has her name on it and contact information as well. So please make that available, use it yourself, share it within your family, your workplace. It's a tremendous resource, and Laura certainly has some case openings available here in Tamaqua. And generally she tries to meet at the Art Center, which is a public space, but offers some private venues in there for the sake of confidentiality. No insurance necessary, but for those people who are having difficulty getting out to that place, she'll meet them at other, again, public venues for the sake of everyone's safety, but also with some private meeting space involved.
And just one thing to add, we also do provide legal advocacy. So, you know, someone that was a victim of a crime and maybe needs some extra support, we can help them through the legal process. We can attend police interviews. We can help them go through the trial process, attend preloads and things like that. Or medical advocacy, same thing. If you know someone that was perhaps in assisted rape, and this is something SARC does, we can go to the hospital with them and kind of talk them through the process of what they're going to experience. So it's a wonderful resource. And again, 100% free. We have a 24-hour hotline if need be.
So the Green Dot philosophy has been around for a number of years. You may or may not have heard of it. There's very rapidly, it was a slow build, but now it's a rapid adoption at a lot of schools, universities, military academies, where you can't really go a month in the news without hearing about some sort of assaultive behavior. Usually it's sexual assault on college campuses, but it can be other personal assaults, even hate crimes. The military, like the Air Force Academy, the Naval Academy, even some of the state police academies have adopted it. Lebanon College has it. Penn State School actually works a little bit in conjunction with me on their Green Dot initiative. But it began at the University of Kentucky, as I said earlier, and they actually put it under the study and the scrutiny of the Center of Disease Control to monitor what were the outcomes over the course of a 7-year period. And initially, they saw a really significant reduction in violence prevention at the 1-year, 2-year marks out. And they just attributed it to they were saturating every business and neighborhood around the university, getting the awareness out. And they thought, well, what happens once the coasters and the name card placards go away and people start to just absorb it but forget about it on a daily basis? And what they found was even 3, 4, 5 years out, the violence reduction continued to fall. And what they saw over a 5-year period, after that initial 2 that they just discounted in the research, after the 5-year period, 50% reduction in violence. 50%. They were hoping for 20, and they got 50, which means that this is an attainable goal. And one of the things that I have attached in their education packet is a graph called Where We Are Now in Tamaqua, with the appreciation to Chief Weaver and the Tamaqua Police Department, and specifically Officer Mike Hobbs, who was able to compile the data and send it to me. Using that data, I came up with a graph of specific power-based personal violence crimes: family and child, sex offenses, robbery, aggravated assault, and race. You'll see that 2010, 2011, a spike. 2012, pretty consistent. 2013, pretty consistent. 2014, at least a noticeable drop, and that's when we began to implement Green Dot as of March that year. The caveat to that is that December's numbers, whatever crimes were reported and responded to in December, were not in that tabulation, and I'm still about to put them back in, but unless there's a significant spike in December every year, the numbers of 2014 were already improved, and we're looking for that to continue. Those numbers actually represent, in some cases, rate might be 1 or 2 instances, again, reported. Not every crime is reported. Sometimes victims have a hesitancy to do that. That's where a trauma-informed counselor comes in, or often helps people navigate the reporting process before it ever makes the statistics page. So 1 or 2 in a community is very easily reversed. That means that out of this room, and you each tell 4 or 5 people, and we stop 1 crime from it happening in that category of rape, you've reduced it by 50%. It's just that easy to affect change when the numbers are this small. And Tamaqua, a town of 7,500 people and townships, actually fit the model, the Green Dot model, like perfectly when the Safety Initiative and the Community Partnership went to obtain this grant, this program. It was a small enough town with enough diversity in population and socioeconomic status. It just fit all the parameters perfectly. So we're being very closely watched by the national headquarters folks at Green Dot for our success rate. And so far, they're quite pleased with where things are going, especially by the response like this. Every time we host an event, have a table out here at Heritage, people come over, they talk, we get spontaneous disclosures for people almost immediately in the street. So thank you for being part of the solution. Cell phone and Facebook phenomena is a cultural change that we've all experienced in a rapid, short amount of time. And when we're trying to change the culture to one which is intolerant to violence, it sounds like that's insurmountable, but yet everybody in this room probably has a cell phone. Everybody in this room is either on Facebook or has heard of it and knows the power that it has. Most of that stuff didn't exist 10 years ago. You could almost overnight watch families have one cell phone. Maybe the dad had, maybe the mom had it. And then there were two in a household. You know, the oldest child who could drive had a cell phone. And then grandma had one because she goes out on her own and we worry about her, and so she carries a cell phone. And then sooner or later, everybody had one. And it just sort of happened. It wasn't something like there was marketing, there was of course awareness. You see it in media and movies, but everybody sooner or later saw the value of having one, and now to the point where they're almost kind of a nuisance. You have to shut them off from time to time to focus on life. That's a cultural change that just went from person to person to person, just spread like wildfire. And that's what we're asking to do with the Green Dot message as well. Continue to spread it gradually, and eventually our hope is that if you sample 10 people in Tamaqua off the street someday, at least half of them are aware of Green Dot, and we're hoping to achieve that level through your assistance and cooperation. Facebook, same thing. I think I've been on Facebook since 2008, but I know some people have been on there a little bit longer. For a time, it was very limited. It was limited to Mark Zuckerberg and one college, and then spread out to other colleges, and then it was little groups and pockets are associated with alumni groups seemed to use it quite a bit in the beginning, school alumni. And then gradually everybody has it. And now there's even jokes and skits on Saturday Night Live about, oh crap, my mom's on Facebook, and everybody's on Facebook. And it's the nature of a cultural change. Sooner or later, everybody sees the value of being connected and being able to talk to family who's across the country, share pictures with what's going on, post pictures of what is this thing I just found in my yard, and you have suddenly expert advice within seconds of, oh, that's a fungus on your tree, be careful with that. Information and the rapid response and rapid communication is now part of our daily expectation. And if power went off, God forbid, we would struggle with, oh my gosh, what do? We don't have our Facebook. So a cultural change is very likely possible and very easy to observe. No? No. All right, Mike Pearson. Also part of the Green Dot launch team. And I will run down your resume if you want to see it. So we can establish a new cultural norm by continuously marching that message and that effort forward so that everybody becomes aware of it sooner or later. The good news about these types of crimes, about power-based personal violence, is that we outnumber the bad guys by thousands to one. If we're talking about, again, that statistic of rape, reported rape in Tamaqua, 2 instances, how many other people are not committing rapes? Hundreds, thousands. So the fact that our message is easier to absorb, easier to translate, and certainly more socially acceptable, we clearly outnumber the bad guys, and it's not like you're going alone. When you have a clear conscience about what is expected and unacceptable behavior in society, it's much easier to share that because everybody else generally is going to share that, or at least share the core values. The new term that we're using, I've said it a few times, but I want to explain it a little further. Power-based personal violence. It can be anything that falls under child abuse, certain peer bullying, stalking behaviors, rape, sexual assault, gender and sexuality intimidation and hate crimes, elder abuse, mistreatment or abuse of people with intellectual or physical disabilities. Again, any instance where one person exhibits power over another and causes a physical, a psychological, a sociological, or emotional harm to another person. The reason that University of Kentucky and the Green Dot model chose power-based personal violence was that they found people in their own camps not always working together for almost the same cause. You had your elder abuse people over here, and that's what they were about, elder abuse, and you had your peoples with disabilities advocacy here, and you had your violence against women people over here, and they didn't quite interact all the time, and yet they were fairly well doing exactly the same kind of work. University of Kentucky and Green Dot, etc., came up with power-based personal violence because it's a nice big umbrella that covers it all. And the same messaging, the same response model, the same outreach model follows all of that. When we talked about responding to crimes that are happening in front of us, we have to recognize that there are personal barriers that we all have, and they can fall under a couple different categories. Not everybody is comfortable doing something the same way that somebody else will. There are certainly things such as group or social dynamics, one of which is known as the diffusion of responsibility, which says that if you fall down in a stadium full of people, clutching your chest, you probably would get a few people to notice you, but as everybody's going in and out of, say, halftime, you'll get a lot of attention, actually. If you step out on your own and walk towards the bathroom and fall down and nobody's around, your chances are you're going to be there quite a while until someone notices you. When there's a large group, though, people will always assume that somebody else is taking care of it, or I'm not qualified, or I'm not a first responder, so to speak. So you're more likely to receive attention when there's a small group of people who aren't looking for the first responders than a large mass of people. And that's what diffusion of responsibility is. You often see when something happens, people look back and forth. We're human animals, sociologists, and we tend to gauge whether something's right or wrong based on other people's response. Evaluation apprehension is always that thought of, what if I'm wrong? What if what I'm seeing isn't really a fight? What if it's something else? What if it's just they're being friendly? What if people are just very physical with one another and that's okay for them? So we recognize that you may not be evaluating every situation perfectly, and that's okay. It's just, again, a barrier. Recognize that everybody has that. And that you might be wrong, but you might be right, too. It might be something that needs attention. And usually an apology such as, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that, you two guys like to punch each other on the way to the bar, which often happens. Pluralistic ignorance sounds a little bit more complicated, but it's really just a way of recognizing the way what other people are assessing and doing. And the model we talk about with that is if we're all in a room and smoke starts to filter in and people look at it and notice it and nobody does anything, then we just kind of sit there and let it keep happening. But as soon as maybe one person stands up and says, smoke's coming in, this shouldn't be happening, then everybody is on alert. And so, it's that group evaluation is, if there's a danger and nobody does anything, then we just assume, oh, it must be okay, or everybody would be standing up to leave. But yet everybody's doing the same thing. They're waiting for the group to decide that something's wrong. Cause of misfortune, there's something known as victim blaming. And we don't want to do that. We don't ever want to assume that because a person comes into a facility dressed a certain way, behaving a certain way, and has maybe in the past initiated contact or conflict, that person deserves to be the victim of crime based on their past behavior. Everybody deserves to be free of violence and crime, even if they've experienced it in the past, even if they were the initiator of it in the past. We don't want to ever ignore someone's at need or at risk because we think they don't deserve it. It's not really our call to do that. If you offer assistance, offer a green dot moment, and they turn it away, clear conscience, you've done what you could. So not everybody wants help, but we're going to make the effort to apply some help to some people. And again, the helping model is what I started to speak to before. More people are likely to stand up and be helpful if at least one person does. And if you hold the door, the person behind you see it, the door gets held for other people, the door gets held for other people. Again, it's this innate human behavior trait that we have. We just sort of follow the behavior and the lead of somebody else. And so when we have a green dot moment, a crisis moment, you have the ability to self-define and be a leader and say, I'm going to be the helping party. I'm going to be the first one to stand up. And almost always someone else will in the group or in the surrounding area help you. Any questions at this point? I'm moving fast because it's about a 3 to 4 hour full training I'm condensing into 1 hour for you with all the high points. Okay. What's that? Halfway. All right, we're on schedule. Your peer influence, your social network, family, friends, is your single most biggest determining factor as to whether or not you act in a given situation. And certainly, your expectation of your own behavior is derived from how other people see you. How do your friends refer to you? Are you the outgoing person? Are you the quiet person? Are you the thoughtful person? Are you the hothead in a group? Those expectations, those roles that we have for ourselves and for our family and our friends define who we are in society. And so, again, as a personal boundary, just recognize your model, your reputation, the person you want to be. Are you shy? Are you quiet? Are you more thoughtful? Are you more like the person who can dial the phone in their pocket and call for the police in a situation without ever raising a voice or an eyebrow? You can just be a calm responder. Play to your strengths and recognize that not everybody's going to respond in the same way. Do you believe what society's told you to not get involved? It's not my problem. I don't. That seems to have been the message. At some point when I was growing up, everything I did was everybody else's business. People in the street would say, "I know who you are. I know who your mother is," and that was weird. But at the same time, that was very reassuring. As I started to get older, I thought, "Wow, these people have my back." But at the same time, I really couldn't get away with anything if I wanted to. Not that I was trying, but it just put a thought in my head that I'm being watched, I'm part of this neighborhood, I'm part of this community. And then that started to go away. And I think we've lost something by that, and that's not a message that I don't think we want to continue. We are each other's keepers, we are each other's watchers in some instances. If I fell down on the sidewalk out here, I would hope that somebody from Vonz staff would call an ambulance and maybe come out and try to assist me. I don't really want to live in that world where a person could experience a health event or a crime and nobody around would do anything. And that's the ultimate message behind our Green Dot Bystander model is we expect that we're all going to do something for somebody else when the time calls for it. You have to believe that your intervention matters, that it's necessary, and it can change the outcome of the situation. Just believe that it can. These moments in time where you see something happening in front of you at the bar or at the grocery store or in your church or even in your family, the chance to speak up, to check in with someone can be a game changer for that other person, and it required nothing more than 5 words from you. Are you okay? Is there anything else I can do? The 3 Ds are your 3 biggest tools. And you'll see some of them in the resource packets. They're at the tables. And by the way, at the very end, you're welcome to please help yourself. If you're in an establishment that is children's and you want to have children's menus that have a Green Dot message, there's some workplace posters. Please help yourself on the way out. The 3 Ds are, again, your tools that you're going to have on any given day. These old cards with the red and green dots are from Green Dot 1.0, but they're just as effective. Distract, diffuse, and delegate. Diffuse is now become direct, to directly interact. The message is still the same, and they're still helpful to have, so I'll explain them briefly to you. A direct is a person-to-person question. It can be directly to a potential victim. It can also be directly to a potential attacker. Typically, it's more victim-oriented. You can ask a person, are you okay? Is he bothering you? Can I help? Is there someone I should call for you? Would you like to speak to someone in authority, like a manager, the owner, the bartender, a police officer? It can also be, depending on your relationship and your, again, personal barriers and personal safety, it can be a direct to an aggressor. What do you think you're doing? Hey man, knock it off. That's not cool. You can send these messages directly to somebody who's out of line. You may end up in conflict with that person. You may not. Again, it depends on the relationship. But a direct is a person-to-person point of contact, victim or aggressor, in which you're addressing a situation which clearly looks to be out of line. Distract. Distract is any action which causes an aggressor to change the focus of attack. You can spill a drink on purpose. We never do that by accident, I'm sure. You can ask about the weather, your favorite sports team. You can ask about a new phone, or did you order this? Bring somebody the wrong order. Can I see you at the cash register? There's a problem with your credit card. Just honestly make things up if you see that somebody's in danger. There's a phone call for you behind the table. I know that probably never happens today because we all have those cell phones, but it's reasonable to assume that somebody might be calling the establishment for a person that's there. I need you to move to a different table because the roof leaks over here and it just started, we're afraid that we don't want you to get dry, and that can be a, change the moment of a building aggression. Is your car alarm going off? These distractions are only limited to the level of creativity and spontaneous lying that you can do on behalf of a potential victim. I'm sure at some point you've had to intervene at some level when you see something like this happening, where a person is not really responsible for themselves and somebody's potentially taking advantage of them. And if you've done a green dot and didn't know it at the time, I certainly applaud you and thank you for your efforts. Now you have a name to it, and that's something that you can practice and support one another on. Always make an attempt to isolate the potential victim and ask if they're okay whenever possible. It's not always possible, but if possible, checking in with them seems to be the recurrent theme in the green dot model. You're always checking, are you okay? Is anything going on here that you want to duck out? Is someone that you should call? Do you have friends that are nearby? These are the types of questions that legitimize that a person in danger probably knows it and is sort of empowered to know that somebody else is recognizing them. They're more likely to accept the help if you draw attention to it. You don't have to say, hey, I think he's going to rape you. You can say, are you okay? Is everything all right? Do you know him well enough? These are the questions you want to ask. And again, limit it to your own creativity, however you want to approach the subject. Delegate is another of the 3 Ds. You can ask a manager, a bouncer, a security guard, an owner, a police officer in some cases to address potential situations. Sometimes people's behavior is so unruly that it needs to have the attention of having that person removed. Again, isolate a potential victim. I don't like always using that word, but and for this case, we'll remove the red dot behavior person, we'll move them out if at all possible, and isolate the victim and make sure that they're potentially safe. In green on the outline, it would be a potential red dot situation and your personal obstacle, and getting through that personal obstacle through some sort of creative means is a self-defining moment. We seem to, in the last maybe 15, 20 years, celebrate heroes, everyday heroes all the time. This is a moment to be an everyday hero, and you're not going to get an award or a plaque or a recognition dinner or anything like that. But you're a hero to somebody who maybe was going to experience a crime, and they'll know it. They may pass along that same feeling, that same effort at some point, and it becomes a diffusion model. It spreads throughout the community until everybody seems to know that they're looking after for someone else, and that they're being looked after as well. Again, no one has to do everything. This is a recurring thought with Green Dot. No one has to do everything, except Laura and I. But everybody has to do something. And it could be just one moment that takes 5 seconds of your day and once in a whole year. But it's that moment that reverses the tide. Everybody can do something, everybody should do something. We talk about what you can do and what you should do. We always have to recognize that your own personal safety is paramount. We never want you to start a fight with someone in order to help a victim who nothing has happened yet, but then you become a victim of a crime, or a beating, or even just a physical brawl. So assess your personal safety. Always ask yourself the questions: how can I help keep myself safe? Are there others that I may call upon for help who will recognize danger without asking and come and help anyway? Or what are my available options? And what are the costs and benefits of my taking action or not taking action? So always check your own personal safety before intervening. Don't want you to get hurt in the process of trying to help someone else. It's always very helpful if this came out of our November Green Dot 2.0 Summit. which was establish code words and phrases that are specific to your workplace so that each other, you know when something is not right. And I think Walmart has the code Adam, and that's if there's a lost child or a child about to be abducted. They lock the doors, or they put their staff theoretically at the doors, and they don't allow children to pass unless the code has been called off because the lost parent or the lost child has been returned to their rightful parent. I believe my wife said at one of the places at school she worked, they used to say, Mr. Wesson, please call the front desk, and that was Smith & Wesson reference, in that if they knew that there was a weapon brought into the school and they didn't know which child had it or where it was, that was an alert to all the teachers over the PA system that there was a weapon on grounds, and that would initiate, that was actually pre-lockdown model. So now they've done grounds, but have words and phrases that you can specifically use at your establishment when somebody comes in who might be a known aggressor, but maybe was trouble in the past, or whatever potential situations you might see that you want to have words for. A date rape drug goes in a drink, and all you say is this glass was dirty and pour it out. Everybody else that you work with will know what that meant. And maybe it really was dirty, but maybe that's your code to get rid of that. Ultimately, as we follow a Green Dot model and changing the tide and the culture in Tamaqua to one which is intolerant to violence, how would a tourist or a visitor who came to town know that this was a place where we were intolerant to violence? We would use our resources, our media, our supporting network, and our culture to reinforce these values. I always say, how would anybody know that we had a history with trains in Tamaqua? Well, we clearly have tracks, we clearly have a station, we clearly have some relics, but these were things that were always, that at some point were in a state of disrepair, and we had to draw attention back to it. It's the same way with a cultural norm. If our cultural norm has gotten away where we don't always say things about violence and crimes, and now we do, it's a way of reaffirming what we believe and what we want to be true of a place. Available assault resources and trauma counselor, as I mentioned with Laura, there's one of the things in your resource packet, let me just jump to that real quick, is in a large wallet card, looks like this. These are things you can give out at the bar, at the restaurant. These are things you can carry with you. I noted on the crisis line, and only because I cannot yet edit a PDF and have it print. Crisis line, there's one in Schuylkill County. Well, first of all, you all know 911 for immediate first responder help. But a crisis county We Help line, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you have pens, write it down. If not, I'll have it. 877-993-4357. So I'm going to pass that around. Eventually, I'm going to have that put on there. In terms of resources for our resource packet, there's the wallet card, there's a bartender's guide, which is actually really nice because it can fold in half. I can't. Fold it in half and then fold it in a quarter, and it could actually sit somewhere where you register, near your door, wherever it's handy for you to have it, and keep it. And if you lose it, don't worry, I can certainly, that's that one. It actually looks a lot like the double-sided. We can talk about that in a minute. It's the one that has where I had to make for 3. That's a bartender's guide for you to keep. The other one that looks very similar to that is actually 2 sides, 2 halves that look the same. That's actually a customer card. I don't know what these are called in your business when you put these on the table. Do they have a name? Table 10. These are can be used as table 10s, or they can be reduced and put in, do these have a name? Table platters, plastic holders.
Same thing.
Same thing, table 10s. You can put those at every place and reduce those. Any of the resources that I've given you, feel free to reproduce, copy, or request directly from me. I'll print them out and make sure that you supply with them from now until as long as I possibly can. Those are customer awareness cards that can go out on the tables. We've got top 10 bystander tips that can go out in your bathrooms or any public bulletin boards, or even for the staff to look at every day. The wallet cards, the Bartender's guide. And then these large ones are enlarged quite a bit. These are actually posters, model poster messages that, again, you're going to be getting printed out and supplying with. But if you have your own poster provider and want copies of these electronically, PDF, to send out to your suppliers, we will certainly provide that and share that with you free of charge. All of the material that helps to support Green Dot messaging and model behavior is available for free and for you to share and use as you need. Any questions at this point before I get into this last section? How am I on time? Last item, ongoing mutual supportive relationships with Live the Green Dot School program, Green Dot awareness specials, trivia nights, posters, coasters, prizes, safety cards. Anything that, if you want to host an event, a safety night at your establishment, and you want me to help provide materials, discussion, Laura cannot, Laura alone, myself alone, however it works, to provide information about the program. But we can also do a fun night, which might involve some really mediocre prizes. I have a few, I can get some more. We have some odd stress ball things, and some pens, and the notepads. I have like about 700 more of these sitting over my office. So we can give those out many times. Everybody likes a notepad because you can only use it around the garage, the shop, the housework. Also, I think we have some t-shirts that we give out. We're going to have those out at a trivia night. But the opportunity exists for you to be more involved with the messaging, make your establishment safer, make your community safer, and also perpetuate the message that your establishment is a fun, a safe place for people to go to. Anything else for you folks? I moved through that like super, super fast. Questions? Any real world scenarios that have happened that you want to share? Please don't use names, but
I guess something that's interesting actually. About a year ago, saw on Facebook somebody was promoting an event up in Hometown area, up in Rush Township. They reserved a lot through the fire company, and the fire company thought of their family reunion thing. It was actually a big drug rave kind of thing. But they were promoting it online and going all crazy. I'm not kidding. They had 5,000 people weren't going to be there. It was legit. They had a website made and everything.
wow.
I'm thinking to myself, and you watch the video, at the end of the video, the guy was saying, we're not doing drugs, but you can get it here. He says it right on the video. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Make a few phone calls. Me and a few other friends, and it ain't there no more. It wasn't held. They tried to have any hiding.
Shut it down.
Well, just by letting the authorities know.
Sure.
That's all you had to do, really.
Yeah.
So, I was just trying to say is,
It's
you got to be observant, because they would have had a party there, nobody would have known, you know.
Nefarious things going on. Yes, sir.
The only thing I will say is that, everyone is mistaken that crime only happens in economically depressed communities, I'll give you an example. A good friend of mine was a state representative, and when his sister's husband died, he moved her into this lovely, very expensive, secure complex with a gate, and 2 days later, 5 people were killed right next door, and the headline read, 5 people dead in upscale, secure community. Crime happens everywhere.
Every life has value. I know that's been a message that's been repeated out of some events in the recent past, but it's true. Regardless of economic status, regardless of social standing or placement in a community or disability, ability, gender, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, every life has value, and every person should have the right to be free of crime. I believe that that's what was intended by the founders in our Constitution: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That everybody has the ability to live free of those things. I'll be around for a while as we clean up. I'm having my lunch here. If you want to join me in some more conversation, I'm happy to have it. Laura's passing around just a quick evaluation. One of the things that we need to do with the grant is keep track of whether people have learned something through the trainings and whether they're comfortable with the information or have further requests that are available to answer things. I have one. You have it now. So please, if you wouldn't mind, just take a minute or two to finish up.